sometimes we can access through memory. When we've seen great beings, what was their presence like? The light in their eyes. Something special in the atmosphere around them, and the timbre of voice. We can use recollection as an access point. For someone, the hearing of some special Dhamma, or reading, contemplating of it, in those moments, we remember, we access. Ineffable, indescribable, but our hearts, our bodies and minds know. Touch into and access that knowing. You can allow yourself to abide in the presence of that knowing. Allow yourself, sense spaces and perception to be bathed and steeped in the presence of that knowing. And like this, we're bathed with the inner bathing. Like this, our minds, our bodies become like a water purifying gem. Clarity connected with the breath, and also the breath becomes very pure and clean and fine, bright. If we have the heart for it, we can parade this sense not only through just the extent of this body, but also into the space around us, like a water purifying gem. Breathing in, breathing out that purity, clarity, and freshness. You can feel very comfortable and fresh. Like becoming an air purifying plant or tree in the space. Offers life-giving oxygen, clarity and freshness. It's renewing. Enables seeing things clearly, being able to be with them easily, cleanly, clearly. Without friction, without burning. It's the opposite of that. See how this connects to kindness for self and others. See how it's a kind of generosity. The giving of a gift to self and others. See how it's a source of happiness and ease, tranquility and safety, peace. How our gentle hearts for peace can find ease here. how there can be a tenderness for all of life, awareness. The cosmos of this body, space, our minds. And the gift is a source of happiness. May all beings be at ease. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, freedom from anxiety, freedom from hostility, freedom from ill will. And may I maintain this well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being. Free from affliction. Free from anxiety. Free from hostility. Free from ill will. May they maintain this well-being in themselves. May all beings be free from all suffering. May they not be parted from their good fortune. The future is born from these actions. And to these actions we will be the heirs. from the highest to the lowest realms, all beings, all forms of life, throughout the entire universe and universes, all dimensions. Imaya Dhammadharini Buddhang Pujame. Imaya Dhammadharini Dhammang Pujame. Imaya Dhammadharini Sanghang Pujame. Adoimayan Patipadayan Charamaranamham Parimuchi Sami. Itang no punyang asawakaya hotu. Itang no punyang magapalanyanasa hotu. Itang no punyang nibbana pajayo hotu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Varatanataya. So I hope, like me, now you may feel a little refreshed while having a few minutes to sit like this, or in whichever way is best for you. And now refreshed, I want to invite everyone who's here to welcome into what's been prepared of this program together. Thanks to those who are here together, especially Venerable Bhikkhuni Kachayana and Seminary Tavira, who helped to prepare so many things and offering tech support. Then there's something that they would like to share with you that I prepared earlier on with regards to this full moon, our Buddhist heritage, and the journey of Sanghamitta. So I'd like to invite and welcome that, and then also offer some time for questions or discussion as you'd like. There was a request previously that there would be such time with this, so then it seems like a suitable day with this full moon being the lunar anniversary of the important, say, like center of this story, to offer such time to our community. Please go ahead. Jaya Namo Rathanataya. Walking in the footsteps of Great Terry Sanghamitta, offered in commemoration of the Sanghamitta Day full moon. Inspiration is of enormous meaning in human life, a priceless treasure. In times of darkness, trials, and turmoil, bright examples are our guiding lights, our companions, Kalyanamitta, both by day and by night. The Buddha highly recommended looking often to good role models and developing skill in contemplating them, both for his left-home monastic and householder disciples, commending the qualities of his luminary disciples of all four parisa, or assemblies. Each was considered noble, meaningful, and worthy of remembrance. This is truly one of the great treasures of Buddhism, it being, in its ancient traditions, rich with role models of fully awakened and self-liberated women sages, leaders, teachers, and exemplars of all walks of life. Early Buddhist teachings might be unparalleled in world traditions in this regard. These teachings, examples, and practices are full of power, capable of coming alive in our lives when we turn our minds and hearts towards them. I found the polytext Buddhist traditions to be especially rich in records of great awakened women, from their teachings and their hagiographies in the polytext canon to their life stories in the polytext commentaries, and in the polytext chronicles passed down in Sri Lanka, where we find the life stories of such great women after the time of the Buddha, most well known among them the princess daughter of the Emperor Ashoka, the great Bhikkhuni Sanghamitta, who we commemorate today. In the Sinhala Polytext Chronicles, such as the Dipavamsa, Mahavamsa, and Mahabodhivamsa, Sanghamitta Teri's story is embedded within the story of another great lady, sometimes said to be Sri Lanka's first Arahant, Anula Devi. Often called Queen Anula, she was the Uparani or vicereign of Sri Lanka. Anula Devi, while listening to the Buddha's teachings from the Satya Samyutta as taught by the Arahant Mahinda shortly after he arrived, realized stream entry one day, and then stream winning the next day. She then requested ordination into the monastic Sangha. Not only Anula Devi, but hundreds of ladies of the royal household and of her entourage who joined her gained insight and entered the Arahant path listening to the Dhamma together. The chronicles record 1,000 women who asked to enter monastic life. At this point, the images here are all still imagination. Anula Devi expressed her wish to enter monastic life to her husband the viceroy, who expressed this to the king, who in turn expressed it to their teacher, the great Arahant Mahinda. It's noteworthy that at no point is Anula Devi denied in this story, nor disparaged and told she's being arrogant, nor that she'd better support the male Sangha and be reborn as a man, nor that she should await the future Buddha Maitreya. Rather, the Venerable Mahinda Thera recommends calling upon his sister, a bhikkhuni of great wisdom, Sanghamitta, also mentioning a number of other bhikkhunis of exemplary qualities by name, recommending them to come as well. And he asked for the Sri Mahabodhi, the tree under which the Buddha was awakened, to come. Arrangements were set in motion. This then sets the stage for the story of Sanghamitta Teri's journey. Let us now follow in her footsteps. We begin at the feet of the Sri Mahabodhi tree, under which the Buddha was awakened, with the Emperor Ashoka establishing a cutting of the southern branch, Sanghamitta having announced her acceptance of the mission. Overview of the land and river route through India on the left, and the sea route on the right. After a week of travels in India and then a week at shore preparing, during which the Sri Mahabodhi sapling was ritually coronated, the great company's sea voyage was launched on the first day of the brightening half of the month of Maghasira in Pali. This great painting from Wat Po in Bangkok, Thailand, depicts Sanghamitta and the Sri Mahabodhi tree's journey, showing the great launching on the Indian side. We see Sanghamitta on the upper left, the Emperor Ashoka's departing homage to the Bodhi tree on the lower left, and then in the bottom center, the Emperor Ashoka going into the water to lift up the Bodhi tree and raise it into the ship in which Sanghamitta Teri, the bhikkhunis, and the whole mission have already boarded, followed by their departure in the upper right. Here we see in the upper right, and in the insert, more famously, Sri Lankan King Devanam Piyatissa, deep in the water, receiving the Sri Mahabodhi tree sapling on the Sri Lankan side, as per the Mahavamsa. The great reception in Sri Lanka in multiple stages along the journey is depicted here, from the northern seacoast at the Jambukola port, and in 5 stages along the way to Anuradhapura. The great reception has been perhaps the most evocative scene in the Sri Lankan consciousness in the past 2 centuries, repeated countless times. One of the most famous depictions is the noble and magnificent Great Wall mural of the ancient Kelaniya Raja Mahavihara by artist Solis Mendes, whose beautiful paintings fill this temple's galleries. This image in gold of the Great Reception is enshrined inside the reliquary Chaitya at Sumatipala Meditation Center in Sri Lanka. The beautiful and graceful contemporary Sri Lankan image featured in our commemorative program today. Last year, when I found this image in a Google image search, I could only find one. This year, they have spread widely. How inspiration spreads. Sanghamitta's journey from Jambukola port to the ancient capital of Anuradhapura in Sri Lanka, an overview and close-up of the beginning of the Sri Lankan journey. First stop, Port of Jambukola. This commemorative site was recently re-established after the original ancient Samudradhana Sala site was lost. Second stop along the journey, per Sri Lankan traditions, the Sri Bodhi Dakshinarama in Vaunia along the Kandy Jaffna Highway. Third stop is an overnight at the ancient Tantrimale Raja Mahavihara, formerly known as the village of the Brahmin Tiwanka and Mahavamsa. The painting on site shows Brahman Tiwanka planting one of the first 8 fruits of the Sri Mahabodhi tree, still alive there today. Stop 4, the Pachinatisa Vihara, per the Mahabodhivamsa Chronicle, the final place of Bodhi rest before entering the capital of Anuradhapura. The journey took 4 days. Actually, for the 5th stop, there are 2 traditions. First, the aforementioned stop according to the chronicles, and second, according to local traditions, the ancient Great Northern Road by which the Great Company arrived is none other than the road now called Sanghamitta Mawata, named after Sanghamitta Teri, and the route she took to enter the citadel with the Sri Mahabodhi tree through the northern gate. We show this route here as well. 5th stop continued. The first tradition has Sanghamitta Teri, the Bo tree, and great retinue coming to the Padma Chaitya before entering the citadel by the north gate. This was the site built by King Devanam Piyatissa to mark Mahindathero's first arrival to Anuradhapura. The ancient Padma Chaitya site has recently been lost. We've used old maps here to try and find it again. The second tradition, which has Sanghamitta Teri and the Great Company entering directly via the Great Northern Highway. When mapping Sanghamitta's journey, I noticed that the formerly royally endowed Ashokarama Purana Bhikkhuni Arama near Pangulia village is just to the east of Sanghamitta Mawata Road and just adjacent to the Mawata Oya stream. According to the chronicles, Sanghamitta's ancient monastery where she sought seclusion, previously the Royal Elephants Resort, in a cool area away from the city with flowering kadamba bushes, so named, the Tathālokā or Tathālokā Vihara, was bordered on by the Mawatu Oya, formerly named Kadamba River. Could this be Sanghamitta Teri's long-lost monastery, her self-chosen secluded dwelling? I also question, due to the proximity to the later built Abhayagiri Vihara and this Bhikkhunya Rama's 1,000-year history of royal patronage, whether this may also have been the monastery of Tisara Teri, also known as Tevasara Teri, who famously traveled by ship from Sri Lanka to China in the 5th century of the Common Era to establish dual ordination for the Chinese Bhikkhuni Sangha. First map here, from the north gate we pass through the citadel and emerge via the south gate, Sanghamitta Mahata Road. The second, we then pass Sanghamitta Stupa. The third, onto Sri Mahabodhi Road. We enter the Jayashri Mahabodhi Court, coming to the end of our journey. Mahinda Tero and Bhikkhus and King Devanam Piyatissa on left, with Sanghamitta Teri and ladies of the royal household on right, established the Jayashri Mahabodhi in Anuradhapura, with leading families from around the island joining in. The establishment of the Jayashri Mahabodhi lasted for 1 week and was followed by Bhikkhuni ordinations with Anula Devi and co. under Sanghamitta Teri, and Bhikkhu ordinations with Mahaarita and co. under Mahinda Tero, after which there came to be many, many arahants of both sanghas in Sri Lanka. The Venerable Jayashri Mahabodhi tree of Anuradhapura, established in 288 BCE. Journey's end for Arahant Sanghamitta. Sanghamitta Stupa was built over great Arahant Teri Sanghamitta's chosen cremation place by King Uddiya in the 9th year of his reign, 203 BCE. She entered Parinibbana 1 year after her brother, the great Arahant Tero Mahinda. She was 79 years old. The location chosen by her for her cremation per the chronicles was to the east of Tuparama and previously within sight of the Jayashri Mahabodhi tree. Journey's end for Anula Devi. The Anula Devi Chaitya, unrestored, in Mahintale area outside Anuradhapura. Established in commemoration of Sri Lanka's first Bhikkhuni Arahant, Anula Devi, by Queen Vihara Mahadevi in the 2nd century BCE. I'd like to offer my special appreciation to Vihara Mahadevi, a restorer of the traditions of great Arahant Teri Sanghamitta and Anula Devi in Anuradhapura, after they'd been disrupted in the 2nd century BCE. She was a princess, then a queen, and then also became a bhikkhuni in her later life, restoring and then passing on the Dipavamsa tradition of Sadhamavamsa Kovida bhikkhunis, the lineage of bhikkhuni teachers, leaders, and historians of Sri Lanka, which then lasted for more than 1,000 years after her time, and is now once again re-arising. The end of walking in the footsteps of great Teri Sanghamitta. Chirang Rakantu Loka Sasanang. May the right teaching, practice, and fruits of the Buddha's dispensation last long in our world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Although I have an update. Last year around this time, then I was delving into the old chronicles. Oh, hold on. Is it an okay time for me to speak? Or? Okay. So last winter around this time, then I thought it was time to read these old chronicles for myself in Pali. I read some of bits and pieces before, a couple of them, just the Dipavamsa, the Chronicle of the Island, and the Mahavamsa, like the Great Transmission, the Great Lineage, so then I mapped this journey out as I was reading, and then thought to share that. But the update is at the end there, the what we were calling the Anula Devi Chaitya, actually the Anula Tisa Stupa, is now under renovations. The last December full moon, then those renovations were launched, and meanwhile they're in progress. So that stupa is being excavated, and there's a plan then to be rebuilding it. Meanwhile, some ancient relics have been uncovered within it, and then recently some kind of I don't know what the meaning of it is, actually. I have to ask some Sri Lankan person about what the meaning is of the stone that was found within it recently. But I want to offer this time now for everyone who's here, and those at Waputanason, and those who are joining online together. I'm interested if you have any reflections, any questions. As this was asked previously, it was requested it's like that's nice, and I wish we'd been able to ask some questions. So now we have that time, so I'd like to open this up. This full moon, I think, is a suitable occasion to offer this. So for anyone and everyone who's here at Wat Putanasorn or joining online together, welcome, and I will request those who are assisting with tech support to please look out for you. So, questions, anything you'd like to share? I'm seeing Barbara. Hello, Barbara. I'm glad to see you. It's lovely to see you. And I was so happy to see you here at our monastery this last Saturday.
Oh, I was thrilled to be there. Thank you.
And we had such perfect Portland winter weather. Nice
it
and
didn't
rainy
matter
and
to
cool
the
and
end.
misty.
And then it was so cold. I just want to tell you, this has been just a lovely moment with you.
Oh.
I mean, just really, I'm very, very touched in my heart, just with your being with us in meditation, and now you're teaching and offering of all of this. It just feels very powerful and gentle, both at the same time. So that's why I'm speaking. That's how deeply I was touched. So the second question the first question I actually have is, part of my understanding of the Buddha is some of the teaching was about Buddha, the man, the boy, the younger man, and just the sense of the person who then became enlightened or awakened. So I'm missing with Sanghamitta a little bit of who is this person that is, obviously we hold in, high esteem and in love.
Thank you for mentioning that. And yes, the very early Buddhist tradition certainly went to great lengths, and even great lengths over the centuries, to then pass down the stories related to the Buddha, and then also to many of the early disciples, the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis, also upasakas and upasikas, even memories related to their past lives, and exploring the question of how did they have the merit or what's often called the punya and the parami to be able to meet with the Buddha and wake up and become fully awakened beings.
Yeah.
What were their vows? What were their practices over time? And so, yes, that's something the very early traditions, I feel like it's a wonderful, great gift that's been passed down to us.
I
And
agree.
even if we look at the Therigatha, when we look at the Therigatha and then the Theriapadana texts, probably many of you are familiar with the Therigatha. The Therigatha itself shows that it appears to have been under development even into the Ashokan era, with the final Sumedha Teri. And then the Teri Apadana picks right up with Sumedha, and the Sumedha Therigatha actually is like an Apadana. It's already transitioned into the Apadana genre. And Apadanas are heroic biographies, and even we find this then also in the Greek genre of the great plays and heroes' stories. So these were then passed down even in performance arts. So those stories were told in the Buddhist context, even around the great stupas, as like dramatic recitations and performances of those stories. And one of the strongest aspects of this was for people, as you said, Barbara, when the stories are told in that kind of way, it's easy for our hearts to connect with those beings, with the Buddha, with the ancient Teras and Teris, and in a way then also through the images that are made, or through the stupas, through the relics, through the trees, the awakening trees, then there's something in both name and form, in both nama and rupa, that's representing them. And that sense of heart connection, according to the Apadana stories, that sense of connection is actually an important factor for many of those whose awakening stories were passed down to us. So they connected with a past Buddha, or the present Buddha. They connected with ancient Tera or Teris, and their hearts went out to them. They admired them. They saw something bright and beautiful and excellent in them with which they deeply connected. Some of them, even that connection was with the Bodhi tree. Some of them said the connection was with an ancient shrine. And this is something that I was actually trying in a very little way, just a little bit this evening in our meditation time, to explore. So I went through a number of ways that people, myself and I know many others, actually access tranquility and a sense of the profound, deep stillness, awareness, and awakened awareness. How these connections happen, and how these qualities come alive in our minds and then come alive and are able to be even deeply spread through our bodies and then spread in our environment. And for many of those who had such experiences in these stories, that was how they connected, is that spreading in the environment. So the light of the eyes, the sound of the voice, the feeling of the aura or ambiance in the space. Sometimes it's called the wake. Even it's said, like, when a boat is moving through the water, you drop a stone, and there are the ripples, and then that's called the wake. Or when birds are flying, then there'll be the leader bird, and then the other birds fly in the wake. And it's those birds that are flying in the wake, even that's just air, but it's so much easier. That space somehow has been prepared by that passage and by the one who has gone ahead. It's like it's been opened up, and it's so much easier to come into that space. So this is called Buddhanubhutang, which means those who awaken after the awakened one, or those who awaken in the wake of an awakened one. So Buddha in this case is referring to the Buddha Gautama, or to any of the past Buddhas, but in fact it also refers to Pacceka Buddhas, who are said to be the silent Buddhas or sages who realize complete awakening themselves but don't teach, sometimes called private Buddhas, as well as what's called Sāvaka Buddhas or Sāvika Buddhas. So Shravika, and those are the disciples, but they're also considered to be fully awake. They're also arahants. They're not considered to be exactly the same as the bird who's the one who's groundbreaking in the front, but likewise legitimately and completely arahants and awakened ones. So these are called disciples, who are Buddhas, who are awake, who are completely awake. And they themselves have their own wake. So that is their aura, their ambiance, and then the ways that people are able to sense them and what it is to be awake through the physical and mental realms, through consciousness, as well as, people say, as I mentioned in the meditation time, the light of the eyes, something in the sound of the voice, something that's like a profound feeling in the air. Normally they don't talk about smell and taste, but sometimes, even, occasionally, then people said, even the awakened ones, that there's some kind of different smell. And I think for some of the animals, I've seen animals who then have responded differently to the very kind people. The dogs can know whether someone is really truly kind immediately, just by smell, because that whatever we have going on then is manifest through chemical patterns. So if we're feeling kindness, that's like a chemical, different taps are turned on in us. If we're angry, some other taps are turned on in us that are like poison for our bodies. And then also there's a smell that comes out from that. When the people are being kind and compassionate, then the dogs can smell that, yes? Whether it's some kind of sickness or some kind of the medicine that we can make in our hearts and minds, as I was trying to also speak about in the meditation. Sometimes this is called Osatang Uttamang Warang. Osata is medicine. Uttama is the highest, best, and Warang also. Vara is most excellent. There, Wat Bhutanison, even the name of the Buddha image that's sitting front and center there, that beautiful golden Buddha image, I don't know if tech support can highlight for a moment, but this is called Prabuddhavaro, and connects to the verse in the Ratana Sutta, Waro Waranyu Warato Waraharo Anutaro Dhammawarang Adesai. What's the English for this that you've been regularly chanting?
I don't like the translation of it.
Oh, tell me anyway. Huh?
The best one.
Oh, is that from the Bhavana Society book?
Yes.
I see. So also Longpor Mahaprasert in Thai means water. So the abbot's name, Prasert, and then the name of the Buddha image are matching. So I'll just say, yes, we do have actually some of the older stories of Sanghamitta. And there are aspects of her story that I read that are repeated again and again that I didn't include. When this was prepared, I had a 12-minute deadline. And I thought, okay, I was asked to share what I had learned in reading the chronicles and what I had learned like on the map for the places of the journey. And I was in Sri Lanka and I've been to most of these places. I have to tell you, when I mention about like feeling something in the environment or the ambiance or the wake of the awakened ones, it doesn't just stop. Earlier when I came into the meditation hall, then I could feel the ambiance in the meditation hall that wasn't just coming from who came in just a couple of minutes before. It wasn't only that. I've been in the hall in Waputanasoan many times, and this is something, I haven't been there recently, but I used to really treasure going into that space because there's just such a deep ambiance in there within the space that I could feel, at the physical level, and to just go and like steep in that ambiance. And when I went to Sri Lanka and I visited these spaces, I've developed my own theory here. I'll tell you about it. So there are a lot of large old rocks in these areas, and then the ancient Buddhist people did a lot of like heavy rock construction with the ancient monasteries. And I found going to those places, some of them, it's like you can just feel it. It's there just radiating out of the rocks. So the presence of those arahants in past, even many arahants there, it's just still so powerfully imbuing, especially the rocks, I think. And this is where my theory comes in, because I feel like air, you can feel in a meditation hall sometimes, it's like the air becomes, someone would say, so thick you can cut it with a knife, so thick with stillness. The sign of stillness that you can, the samadhi nimitta is like so thick in the air. And yet for air, it can be moved and changed out quite quickly. Then water also absolutely can be pervaded by and even change. And this is the thing with water, you can see it easily. Air, you can feel it, but I don't know anyone who's done studies with like how the air is electromagnetically charged but these bodies, really, when I was talking about how our minds and then bodies can be like a water purifying gem, these bodies are radiators. They are conductors. They are receiving and they're broadcasting all the time, for good or for ill, until or unless they are shut down. And even the shutdown, when we're with people who are passing away, doesn't all just happen at once. It's not just like one moment. The various things shut down at their own speed and time. It's not just like a singular, solitary, unitary phenomenon as we might imagine it to be in our Western cultural context. There are a lot of different things coming together that are this life, that are these bodies and minds. And they have their own time and they have their own patterns. And we say it's life when they're all, gathered together in their particular formations, recognizable as like a living human being. But, consciousness, the mind, and even the various parts of the body, all this, they have their life. So the meditation time was to bring our attention to that. Barbara, if you're still there, I'm not able to see you now, and the screen where I can see those who are here is like up. So I'm looking up to be able to see.
I'm still here, and I'm over here now.
So there's something in Sanghamitta's story, and I don't know if it could be called personality, that I found especially interesting and touching. And that is, the emissary has come back from Sri Lanka and then has sent the message from the king that's been sent from Anula Devi, the vicereine. And Sanghamitta, upon hearing this, there's the way that's recorded that she hears this. And then also her father, who is then the king or Emperor Ashoka, then because she hears this and is willing to consider what's being asked of her, then he has a reaction that's recorded in most of the texts. And that is, his son has already gone away to this little island far, far to the south of the continent. And he feels it would be hard to bear to
Oh,
have his daughter,
yeah.
even he willingly gave his blessings and gave both his son and his daughter to Buddhist monastic life, to the Buddhist Sangha as a gift of his own flesh and blood. They were willing, they
Mhm.
said, yes,
Yeah.
they were interested, they were willing. But then he's showing his very human heart, then saying that it would be too much to bear
Mhm.
for her to also go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she responds
Yeah.
that Anula, Queen Anula, and this is a part that's so touching to me, and I suppose it's so touching to me in light of our contemporary Theravada Buddhist cultures,
Mhm.
because she says that Anula, who has experienced stages of awakening and her mind and heart inclines to going further in the path, in the way of the monastic Sangha, she says this is weighty to her. She's saying to her father, the Emperor Ashoka.
This is waiting.
So she,
Mm.
compared to even her flesh and blood, her father, uh, this woman who she had never met,
Mhm.
this group of women who she had never met, but who heard the Dhamma and who experienced progressive stages of awakening upon hearing the Dhamma,
Mhm.
that's where her heart went. So we see
Mhm.
her values
Mhm.
there. And she doesn't say it in a way that seems mean or nasty or unkind to her
No,
father.
not at all.
Not
No.
at all. But
No.
she's very clearly herself expressing her values.
Mhm.
And we know historically that from the time of the Emperor Ashoka's grandfather, that there was something that arose in India, a great controversy with regards to women and spirituality or religion. And it was called in Indian language Shri Vimukti.
Mhm.
Shri is women, women folk, and Vimukti is liberation. So it's the question
Oh,
of women's
okay.
liberation.
Yes.
It's not only about women's liberation in the secular realm,
Mm-hmm.
it's about women's liberation also in religion, in Dhamma, in the spiritual realm, the ultimate transcendental liberation. And the great controversy that arose that was recorded by the Jains, the Jains are said to have actually split over this and a
Mm-hmm.
couple of other topics, but whether or not one group said no, they believed not.
Mm-hmm.
With a female body, not possible. Even the doctrine
Mm.
arose that women could not practice jhana.
Wow.
Oh,
Even.
yeah, I was told that when I came to the Wat.
What's that?
Women could not reach enlightenment.
Whether women could not reach enlightenment. So they're even, once this idea got out and spread around, it even also got spread into Buddhism. And so you can still find people at least in Southeast Asia, maybe some in South Asia as well, who hold these beliefs and even hold these beliefs in the name of Buddhism. So we know that this is something historically that had arisen even from the time of the Emperor Ashoka's grandfather, which is after the time of the Buddhas. That's the time that Alexander was making big incursions into India. So there were a whole bunch of new Alexandrias, which came into the northwest of India or into South Asia, and they had debates in the royal court and the whole. I forget. It's Socrates. Who is Alexander's Dhamma teacher? Is it Socrates?
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Okay, Aristotle. Thank you. Anyway, one of those who was one of Alexander's teachers then also was, this is Western science, cutting edge Western science at the time, then measured body temperature of a bunch of different people and generally measured men's body temperature as higher than women's. And so said, and then also measured some animals, maybe iguana, I don't, which animal I'm not sure, but what they said, what they recorded was the animal's body temperature was lower, and then the women's a little higher, and then the men's body temperature was higher than that. So the postulate, this is the cutting edge Western science at the time, was that women were partly human. half human. We're laughing now, but you know what? If we're alive, if we are alive a couple hundred years from now, we might look back and some of the things that we're thinking now, we may laugh like this also, even we're taking them really seriously now. Anyway, so those things were going on, and this was getting spread around, and they had debates in the courts of the kings, and this became a great thing to do, to have the different the philosophers of different traditions and have these debates together and all this. So the reason I mention this is, okay, you get this context, which we know has been then around in the debates of the royal courts, and Emperor Ashoka's grandfather became a Jain ascetic in that tradition that said no women's liberation. So here's just a historical context for you. Because I'm aware of this, this makes the way that she is, the way that Sanghamitta Terry then responds to this situation and word of Anula and her awakening and these other, it says, 1,000, which might not be precisely 1,000, but it's really representing a large number. So responding to this news, and she says it's weighty, which means it's important. This is the word is garu. Even the word guru, Indian languages has this, it's the same word. It means weighty, and it means important, and it also means respect. It's something that one has respect for, what one respects. That is garu. This is what she says about this. And so here's the amazing thing in this interaction, then the Emperor Ashoka then accepts. And not only accepts, but then you'd say in contemporary English really buys into the whole thing. He gives his full support. He arranges for the southern branch of the Bodhi tree then to be rooted as a sapling and prepared, and then prepares for the whole great, they have a great gathering in his capital on what was the previous full moon, 1 lunar month ago, with all the Arahant Bhikkhunis who are going, and then gathering so many different people to go and for this great gift, these great gifts then that are being sent, both spiritual and secular gifts being sent to the island of Sri Lanka. And then supporting the whole journey by boat, journey by land, journey by sea, all of this, and doing everything that was possible to ensure the success of what his daughter had said is garu. That is what is worthy of respect, what is weighty, which means what we value and then what we prioritize over everything else. So this is an element of the story that's most touching for me, where I feel in some way we see, I don't know if we properly call it personality or not, but what is the personality of the Arahants, right? But something of her values, of her presence, of her living conversations, interactions with the person who is her father, expressing what she cares about, what her choices are. And something that's really important here, I think, also is some of the scholars have said agency. And agency is something then that was specifically, even legally, denied to women under the doctrine of no Shri Vimukti. That is, it was said specifically, explicitly, woman not being completely human in the way that man is. Man has agency, woman has no agency. Her agency is in her father, her agency is in her husband, her agency is in her son. Yeah? So here we see an interaction between a daughter and her father is the emperor of the entire continent. Means ruler. The most powerful person who existed at that time, we think, except something was more powerful. And that was right there in the words, in the presence of his daughter, who was awake. So there's something. Thank you for asking. And who knows, maybe there are more stories. I haven't read all of the chronicles and all of the elements of the stories. I was focused on taking a kind of pilgrimage through the texts when I was doing this, and like tracing her journey, because I had been to a number of these places in Sri Lanka. Even you might have seen my photograph there. During the presentation, you may have seen me photographed here with Ayya Adimutti or with other friends at these different places, and I'll tell you about one of them, just to come back to something that I was talking about earlier, the place, the Bodhi tree, the rocks. We were driving by along the highway, and I got a feeling. How to describe the feeling? But it was like off the side of the road. So then I asked, what's that? What is that there? And I was told that's Tantrimale. And then was told a little bit more about it. This is in the car speeding along the highway. And so then I found out that Sanghamitta Terry had stopped there. And so we looked at this in the journey, that she had stopped there and spent a night there. The whole company of all those Arahant Bhikkhunis stopped and spent the night there. And then the Bodhi tree, one of the sprouts, means new growth that came off of it then. The first 8 shoots, one of them was planted there. And I was just drawn right away to that space. And then, what is that? And then I learned the story of that tree. And that's another one that's like original tree there, like the one in Anuradhapura. The one in Bodh Gaya, according to the botanists, is also the original tree, but it's original because that southern branch, then a branch from that southern branch was then brought back to Bodh Gaya. According to the botanists, it's still the original tree, right? So still the life of the tree that the Buddha experienced the great awakening sitting on the roots of that tree. And this is interesting because then how the mind pervades the matter. And then how within not only air, water, rock, but also within these bodies, and the life of these bodies, the beautiful thoughts, the excellent thoughts, the thoughts of Dhamma, the awakened thoughts, the realizations, how they then pervade and spread and, are manifest in the body, manifest in the space, in that area. And so this is something I wanted to then share during the meditation time. And I know probably some of you have your meditation pattern, what you like to do yourself, and so you just did what you normally like to do, and that's good. Or some of you may have to try to practice a little bit with what I was saying. And I know some of you here are also very dedicated and long-time practitioners, so it might have, for someone, it might have all seemed very familiar and, you know, really easily accessible and familiar because you've worked with these things so many times. And you might be like me, and it might be important to you to have times, small times or longer times or hours each day where you're really, you know, choosing to abide with a very pure and clean mind and heart, pervading the body, pervading the space in that kind of way. Perhaps you practice like that on a regular basis, or sometimes. There's this connection here. I felt for myself in some of those places. I went to sit on the rocks in Tantrimale there, quietly for a few hours. And you know, that place and other places, I feel like there's the Dhamma that we read in the suttas and the Dhamma that we hear from the teachers. I felt in that case that it's like the Dhamma of suttas that are like at the pre-verbal level and can manifest in any sutta, any teaching, whatever is needed, is like just like coming up out of the rocks. I don't know how to express it exactly, but that was my kind of feeling in those spaces. And so I made my theory then. I feel like sometimes rock can hold the vibrations and the patterns longer, maybe, than water and air. This is my own funny theory that I just developed based upon my experiences like this. But this is also, it's the human connection with the story and with the place. So you know, when we passed that place, and I had those feelings, and then it's like hair raising, hair on the top of the head and the arms, you know, tingling like. And then I heard Sanghamitta spent the night there, and one of the little buds from that Bodhi tree is then alive there. You know, that connection then that Barbara you were talking about in a slightly different way, but it's the touching, like physically touching with our own bodies and minds, somatically touching the story, the living story, living awakening story. Does someone else have something they'd like to ask or share? Oh, Shari, I heard that you had your hand raised for a while and then put it down again. Are you still there? I know this is the thing with the Zoom. When I look at the laptop here, I see Shari smiling with blue shirt and but she could be somewhere else. Okay, so if someone sees Shari come back again, then thank you, and please feel free to let me know when someone's hand comes up, because I'm not able to see everybody here. Sheila has her hand up. Okay, Sheila, is it all right to spotlight you? I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see you. Greetings.
Thank you. Greetings. Thank you so much for this teaching and introduction to Sanghamitta. This has been incredible. Did she live her life in Sri Lanka until she died?
Yes.
That's my question.
that's both she and her brother then never went back. They stayed there, and one of the places that we saw here, I don't know if our tech support would be able to help with that or not, but I visited her. It's not her tomb, but it's the stupa that was built over the place where she was cremated, which at one time was within sight of the Bodhi tree, and I spent quite a bit of time there in that space. So she is, per the chronicles, she passed away 1 year after her brother, at the completion of the Vasa. I also, together with my someone who I served as a preceptor for early on, Venerable Bhikkhuni Karunika, we were looking around and looking at the chronicles in the ancient areas for where is the monastery that Sanghamitta inclined to for her seclusion. During this presentation, I presented what I thought was most likely, and I spent a lot of time in that place as well. So it's not so easy, I think, because it's like a video. So if Seminary Tavira had their PowerPoint, should be able to easily go through the slides and to find that. But that's one of the places that I showed you as well. And of course, you're seeing just the pictures very quickly, and yet all these things, even the light of those forms and whatever I'm saying, knowing that place, having been there, then there's a way something of it can be shared and transmitted. So I wish to offer that. The Buddha himself went back to his home, his previous home, out of compassion, particularly for his parents, for his father, and for his foster mother, his nurse mother, who is his aunt, Mahapajapati Gotami. But for the Buddha himself, it said, now my name is Tathālokā. Tata is also one of the words that the Buddha used for himself. Tathāgata, people say thus come one, thus gone. Aloka then means light, but also for the Buddha, this is something that he did with his meditation that's akin to what I was talking about in our meditation earlier. This is using the visual faculty and light, and then spreading that to be able to see, to be able to sense living beings within a particular direction. So according to the old traditions, this is how the Buddha decided what he was going to do on a given day, is by pervading his mind around to see where are there beings who are ready, for whom it's a good time to come into contact with the Buddha and with this teaching, for whom that will be fruitful. Even his very first teaching, going to the deer park in the Garden of the Sages outside of Benares or Varanasi. He's supposed to have pervaded his mind around in the world and like, where do I go? Who do I share this teaching with? Who is ready? Who is it right to share this teaching with first? So he's supposed to have done that on a daily basis, and at some point then understood that it was the right time to go and share the Dhamma with his mother and father. And according to the text, it was right. They then, upon seeing him and hearing even brief teaching, then both experienced stream entry and then stream winning. I remember the verses. These are moments Barbara was talking about, these moments of like human connection. Let's see if I remember now. And if I don't remember, then Seminary Tavira will help me because I backed up my memory with her. It goes, I think the verses go, Uttitena pamajeyam dhammang sucharitang chare. Dhammachari Sukhang seti asming loke param hichan. Rise up, do not be heedless. In the Dhamma faring, fare ye well. Happy are those who fare in Dhamma, in this world and beyond. Dhammachari sucharitang, natang ducharitang chare. Dhammachari sukhang seti, asming loke param hicham. Well-faring are those who fare in Dhamma, ill-faring those who fare not well. Happy are those who fare in Dhamma, in this world and beyond. So Mahapajapati Gautamidhari, hearing this, wow, made a great transition from which there was no going back. So I look into these questions myself, these stories like this. What happened to her in those moments? What happened in that connection and hearing those words that have been passed down to us? You know, I hear those words, I voice those words, then what in it is there that's like you woke up? And the kind of extent of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, fear, doubt, confusion, hatred, delusion that plagues so many people and living beings. No going back to that level of that ever again. Sealed off. Asoas. How those things get in and get activated, or how they go out, not going to happen like that to that degree anymore ever again, due to that deep fundamental shift of understanding, perspective, awareness, motivation. Anula, Viceroy Anula also, listening to the Dhamma. What did she hear? Last year, this year, we looked at those teachings. Okay, those are Dhamma teachings. Seems good like Dhamma, but how is it listening that they then, from that, what happened to them that they woke up? We can turn our minds to this, to contemplate directly, not to grasp something, not to get something. There's a different way that we can approach it that one could even find through what I was mentioning during the meditation time. Richard, I see your hand. And I'm hearing it's 9:01. Oh.
Just
How
a
the time
quick
flies
comment
when you're
about
having
that.
fun in Dhamma, yes?
Just a quick comment about that. What struck me is that she had an insight into the fact that it's your own self-directed mind, that it's not dependent on another, that it's your own mind that directs you in the wholesome or the unwholesome, when you understand the nature of the Dhamma. Anyways, that's just the thought that came to me. Someone may have some other thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is the great empowerment. We then come to understand that does not depend upon others, and the prerogative and the imperative lies with us. So now we've come to 9:02 or 9:03, and I'm supposed to be offering another teaching very early tomorrow morning that I'm going to be preparing just after this. So for Sanghamitta Day for UTBSI, United Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha International, then the next 2 days, then there are a lot of wonderful teachers who will be offering various teachings during this time. And so I'd like to invite and welcome you if you feel like you would like to join in for any of those, or watch at your leisure afterwards, then you're invited, warmly welcome to do so. We have the prerogative, we have the opportunity, and I feel also likewise the imperative to discern for the Dhamma, for the practice, for the path, seeing where is the arising path right now for us, meeting that with Dhamma, with the practice, even every moment of awareness, every moment that we're awake. This is our great opportunity, and even one could say at a particular point, imperative. That is karu. This is what we have respect for. This is what we feel is of meaning and value and of the greatest and highest priority as Sanghamitta herself. So now I'd like to close with that. And please remind me how Uttanasoran Tuesday group closes, as I haven't joined in such a long time. Just with Arahang? With Arahang? Okay. So let us close then with Arahang requesting our, or should we, in this case, should we close with the what they prepared? With what you prepared? Okay, we're going to have Arahang, and then anyone who wishes to stay for, how many, is it 2 minutes or 5 minutes? Anyone who wishes to stay for 5 minutes, then this is just the heart's journey in Sanghamitta's way. There's something that they prepared for you to share, so we'll stay on and watch that together. Someone might have seen this before, or someone might have been there live. I was there live. So welcome to join us for that. We'll have Arahang, and then are you ready to, just after Arahang for, okay. So turning our minds and hearts, if not already, to the Buddha, the Dhamma, Sangha, Garu. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Buddhominato Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammam Dhammang Namasami. Dhammominato Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangham Sanghang Namami. Sanghominato. Now,
Yeah, thank you so much for your teaching today. I have offered whoever is at the what to stay over and just follow you for the rest of the program.
greetings,
as long as they
Victor.
like.
There's something else that's offered right now for a couple of minutes. Please go ahead. Welcome.
Devi Piyanulagata
citta pasadaya dutiyam palamachaka tarasanulladeoi ahukama papajitung sadhing panchasatithihi idamahamahipatiṃ ajeva papajisama sache ichasi bhumipa sudvana tassa vachanam rajateranga vochaso Bhandevi anuladevi ichamana papajitum saha panchasatithihi pavajeta idaniwo nakapati maharaja pavajetum tiyohino Attipātaliputtasmin bhikkhuni me kanithaka Sanghamitta dinamena pakatasa bahusutta agacchatu dipesehi ranyo no pitu santikang Bhabaje sati satheri agata itiyo ima mahabodhincha terincha anapetung mahipati therena uttavachanang saramano sakhe pure Andho vasse karivasang nisinno therasantike sahamachehi mante dva bhagineyang sakang sayang aritthanamakhamachang tasmin kamme niyojayi Tadatu anuladevi panchakanya satehi cha ante porika ithihi sadhing panchasatehi cha dasasilang samadaya kasaya vasana suci Pabbaja Bhikkhini Sekha Bhikkhanti Theriyagamang Bhagineyo Maharito Dhamma Sokasarajino Avetwaraja Sandesang Thera Sandesam
Bodhi tree has reached the land of Sri Lanka.
And today the Kashaya territory on the Sonoma coast in Northern California. With our sincere love and honor and respect for our awakening ancestors, foremothers and forefathers in this great path of way of the Buddha. Of all suffering and by realizing
akan kamana papajang gamanang mehudikayung.
From back in the early days of the pandemic. You can see how we enjoyed to get out. I think this was our first That was our first pandemic December, yes, on the Russian River, where it flows out into the ocean just nearby to our Aranya Bodhi Hermitage. My first time ever out in a kayak with a tree. And a wonderful tree at that. That was Venerable Kachayana, who was paddling the kayak in front there. So, you know, just freshness, a lot of freshness and sense of lightness of heart and love and connectivity, not only with in the various words of these ancient stories, but their heart, as Sanghamitta Terry so clearly saw herself in her decision, the heart of awakening, being the center, the light, the core and meaning there. So, good night to everyone under this December Sanghamitta full moon, and wishing you all well in this path of practice, and the sense of connection and light and brightness and enablement. Enablement. May that be with us all.
Thank you,
Alive
Ayya.
in us all.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
We bow to the teacher.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Natite sarananganyang buddhom dhammom sanghom asankhayom te saranang warang etena sajawachena hontuvo jayamangalang.
Good night, Ayya.
Good night. Good night to everyone. Triple gem blessings.
Thank you, Ayya.